I was born October 11th, 1920, right here in Blue Rapids. And the house that I was born in is still up on 4th Street, I believe it is. I could pick it out, but I can't give you the number of it. But where I was born at, the house was moved to its present location right now. I don't know who lives there anymore, but I did used to. Anyway, I went to the Blue Rapids schools. My dad worked out to the mine out here south of town. He worked out there probably 14, 15 years. And they got laid off because this mine out here had dirty rock. And that is generally sold to the salt mines and gyp mines and, you know, just dirt to mix with cement and stuff like that. But anyway, he got laid off, so he went to work for Jim Stevenson over at Waterville. I'm kind of getting ahead, but my first grade teacher was Mrs. Botter. I think everybody in Blue Rapids had her to start out with. And my second grade teacher was Mrs. Tonkin. She was a little short lady, but she was really nice. I mean, you could really learn from her, or at least I learned a lot from her. But before the year was over, Dad moved to work to Waterville, further out, and worked for D.C. Parker. And the Parker School was the, I think it was Prairie View. Anyway, it was right across the road from D.C. Parker's. And I went there, and my teacher's there, her name was Miss Fincham. Then I went to, when I went in town, I went to a Mrs. Miller, still in my second grade. By going from Blue Rapids schools to the Waterville schools and the different teachers and everything, it was too much different teaching that I couldn't keep up. And I failed that first year. That's the only year I ever failed. But then I went to another grade in Waterville, and I've thought of what her name is, and I still can't see her. I mean, you know, to recognize her name. But anyway, Dad moved them down southeast of Irving, worked for a Garwood Judd. And I went to school at the, just a minute. Well, later I was in the 4th grade, and I had the teacher, Miss Sedeby. And she married a guy right out here by where Williams Crossing lived, or was. I can't think of his name. I know it. I'd have to think of it a little bit later. Anyway, the 4th grade was this teacher here. She got married, and of course those kids had a big time. While she was teaching, you know, and he'd come up, pick her up at night, and sometimes in the middle of the day, sit in the church, in the school with us. And she couldn't control us and keep it, because we was always, you know, making fun of them and everything. But we got by that way. Then in 5th grade, I went right out here to Fawn Creek, which is no longer there. They got a big sign out there that says Fawn Creek Schoolhouse. And I had Genevieve Griffey. She used to be married to Rockville, that run the Sioux shop, Marysville. The 6th grade, I went to, no, take it back, 1 year ahead. 5th grade, I went to Mrs. O'Brien. And I had a lot of fun and really stirred up the class that day. But the more I thought of her name, my movie star, Western, was George O'Brien. And I kind of made a fool of myself, but yet I didn't know at that particular time. I said, would your brother or any relation happen to be George O'Brien? Well, that really stirred up the crowd. But anyway, she got quite a quick kick out of it. She said, well, I wished I was. Because, you know, boy, he was a really a popular guy. I don't know if any of you have seen Riders of the Purple Sage or Rainbow Trail. One followed each other, and both of them was real awful good show. I went to it as many times as I'd go to it. The 7th grade, Dad worked down to southeast of Bigelow. And I went to a teacher down there. You know, I got to go to hear this in a minute. Hodges. Anna Hodges. And that year, being the 7th grade country schools, they all had the county exams. The 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade had them, but I was 7th grade under her. We went to Marysville and took her exams, and I think I had 3 subjects and I passed on a B average on the 3. After that, we went to the picture show up at Marysville, of course put on by the county for the Marshall County schools. And it was a horse, I can't remember the name of the horse, kind of like Lightning or something like that, but a big white horse, and he was, oh, we all really enjoyed that show. Now, as far as the teachers in high school, I entered there. Freshman, went all 4 years as in the school, high school at Blue Rapids, graduated in 1939. In the meantime, Dad was on WPA, and those, at that time, nobody had anything. All I had was a pair of overalls, well, a good shirt that I wore back and forth to school, but I didn't want to graduate with that because everybody else had suits and ties and all that. Well, anyway, I worked on the NYA. I drew $5 a month, cleaning the erasers and sweeping the classrooms and all that stuff. And they said, well, we'll give you a chance to get you a new suit if you can find one that'll fit you. So they took, oh, I don't know, must have been 7 or 8 of us to Marysville. We went into some place there, I don't remember what it was now, but that's where they had these suits and they had them all lined up. The only suit that fit me was a gray one. Had a vest and a coat and pants and, well, I think a second pair of pants as far as that goes. And it didn't cost me anything because I was on the NYA and Dad was on the WPA, and he only got about 3 days of work a week plus the commodities, you know, that they give maybe a couple times a week or so on and so forth. Then I went into high school, but I can't tell you all the names of the teachers. There were so many of them. We had 4 in each year, and sometimes they, like you take the first year, somebody teach history, and then the next class, somebody else will be teaching you history. So I had a slew of them all 4 years. But I can remember them. I can see their faces, but I can't remember all the names of them. But I'm sure everybody here knows E.B. Weller. He was the 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade teacher. We had him mostly in the 8th. But I graduated from there in 1939.
Was Mr. Brickta out at the high school then?
No, he wasn't in there at that time. I graduated in May 20th, I think it was. Maybe it's not, but it's close there. And I seen in the paper that the CC wanted boys. So I thought, well, why don't I just join? Can't go wrong too much. I didn't have a job. Before that, I did work on the railroad as a part-time employee and over at the fort down at Fort Riley. And, you know, just small different jobs. And that wasn't really satisfying because you'd work so long and get laid off and try to go somewhere else.
How did you get to Fort Riley?
Beg pardon?
How did you get down to Fort Riley? Did you move?
My 2 uncles worked down there, and I went down there and stayed with them. And I was down there from, well, I'll say about 5-6 months. I worked down there. Wherever my 2 uncles were, they took me with them. And the employer of my uncles always took me in because they knew them, and they said, well, he must be a pretty good worker if they'll, you know, advance for him and everything. I worked down there, and I went into the CC camp, and what we done is planted trees, built dams. We built brush dams and cement dams. We took a lot of these places on the farms where they had arroys or coulees or whatever you want to call them. We built a dam over that section, and I went back to several of them afterwards, and the dam had collected enough dirt to back that up level all the way across. And that was the same way with your brush dams, but you'd cut brush, lay them crossways, and, you know, interfixed them. Then you wired them down, and then pounded stakes down in there, you know, to hold it. And that was the same way that they done. They filled up that ditch, just level with over probably 3 years, I imagine, or something. Maybe not quite that long, but you'd be surprised where that water's carrying all that dirt down that it built up against that dam and made it where they could farm it and everything else.
What kind of pay did you get?
$30 a month, plus your meals, your hospital, your dental, anything that you needed in there. But we only got 5 to keep in the seas. We had to send the other 25 home to our folks.
Where was the camp?
Up here at Marysville, company 2735. I got that down.
Where was it located? What part of town?
Right up at the north part where Lions Park is now. We have a big sign there on the side of the gate that you go in. Used to be the CC Camp Company 2735, and it was there till 42, I believe it was. Well, I served 2 years up there at the CC Camp. And of course I was on different crews, you know, they had foremen that had different crews, and they always picked whoever they wanted to work for them. I was lucky to work for Perkins. He was a Southern, well, I might say gentleman. He was really good, and I got along good with him. He got along good with me. I guess I never had any trouble. We planted, oh gosh, I don't know. I'm just going to say offhand, 10,000 trees of Osage orange, mulberry, almost any kind of tree that they had sent us. We give it a bunch and go over and dig a hole and bury the tree, in fact cedars. And they gave a lot of them to my grandpa because they had run out of the others, and he asked them how about getting a few trees. And they gave them to him, and he planted them up there. And my grandpa's place is northwest, 3 miles out of Blue Rapids, over across the new bridge, going from Fawn Creek north, down around and up over the hill. And them trees are still there, and they're probably about 10 foot high. Anyway, then after I got out of it, I went back to the railroad and worked for, oh, let's see, I got out in June, I think it was, in 42. In September of 42, I got a call went up for selective service. I went up there September the 10th, and September the 20th, we was on our way to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. There we got our uniforms and shots and all that stuff. And there was one guy there that picked different guys that wanted to go such and such a place. He had the first 15 guys on the list, which I happened to be one of them. They sent us to St. Petersburg, Florida. And that's the first time I'd ever been away from home for any length of time. And that was about 3,800 miles, I believe it was, from home, so I didn't get home before. In fact, I was there 2 years before I ever got a furlough. But they sent us to chemical warfare, and I said, well, what in the world is chemical warfare? The poisonous gas, and how to protect yourself from it, how to doctor yourself in case you were in it. Well, we took 4 weeks of really intensive training on the war, on the gas. We had to remember each gas, what it was, what it would do to you if you got in that concentration of it, how to protect you by putting your mask on. And we asked, well, if you put it on, how are you going to know when to take it off? Well, they said the best way to do is put your finger in the side of your mask, drill down real close to the ground, and take a breath. But don't inhale it. Then you got a hose from your mask down to your place, a canister that holds the different stuff that separates all the gas it's supposed to purify. You clear your mask and then you start breathing. But when you do that, you can identify the gas. I'm sorry, gas. I don't know what I said grass, but anyway. But talking about grass, green grass, there's a phosgene gas that we knew. It'll get you right away if you breathe very much of it. It smells like green cut corn or grass that's just been mowed. And it don't have to have a very big concentration. You breathe it and you're done. I mean, the minute you smell that stuff, get that mask on, and that stuff goes through down to your canister and purifies, and then you're all right. But you wear that mask, we wore that mask all day long, doing our drilling, exercise, all kinds of stuff. Then they said you were a lecturer. Well, I've never been in front of 1,800 men at one time to tell it, but we had to remember each one of them gases, what it smelled like, how it affected you, how to protect yourself from it. And I got onto it pretty good, and I got, probably 3 hours a day. They had to sit through that lecture and learn all this stuff, and you had to try to remember. After about 6 months, they said, you're going to be lecturing. And I had a colonel, his last name was Green, and I really liked him. He put me up as private first class there in Florida. And after all this lecturing that I'd done, I only had about 2 hours lecture a day. The rest of the time I could send PX or do whatever I wanted. Had it real easy. We also had to learn how to set off these different, well, you've seen this cloud of smoke that sends out your sparks. They get on you. The only way you can put them out is to smother them and put a certain chemical on them. And they're shooting that right today. Same thing, white phosphorus, I believe the name of it is. Then they put out this other gas too. And we took a high test one morning. In fact, we went on a hike. I got a little bit of hit of myself. We went on this hike. It was a 5-mile hike. We went east of the camp. Now wait a minute. Went north of the camp and then east and back west. And by the time all that happened, with the 15-minute break every so often, they'd set you down and let you take a little break. After all that time, we got on the opposite side of the camp, which we didn't know. So they said, break out your bags, sleeping bags and all that stuff. We had them on our packs, we had to do all that.